Lord Brookborough, esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to you all as we gather to recognise and celebrate the Fermanagh Talking Newspaper's Queen's Award. Can I firstly ask that all mobile phones are please switched off or put on silent. As with any event, and perhaps even more so these days, there are some housekeeping points to run through. Fermanagh House will have no fire drill or building evacuation planned for this afternoon. Therefore, if you hear the fire alarm, please leave the building via the nearest exit point. And this is over here behind you to your right. And the assembly point is the running track at the outside of the building to the right as we're looking at it. Please remember to support those who may need assistance. In these COVID times, please remember to wear your face mask when moving around the room, going to the toilet, etc. We have doors open here to circulate air, therefore you don't need to wear your mask when seated, but if you feel more comfortable, please do so. I hope you all enjoy your afternoon.
Good afternoon, Lord Lieutenant, ladies and gentlemen. Isn't it lovely to be here at last to celebrate this wonderful achievement? And a wonderful achievement it is. I can assure you that this is something that you should be very proud of. It is the highest award given to a volunteer group. It is indeed part of the honour system. It is an award given for life. It was developed by Her Majesty the Queen to recognise her coronation, the golden anniversary of her coronation. So in actual fact, it will be 20 years old next year. And you are one of 169 groups who have the award in Northern Ireland. As the Northern Ireland representative for the Queen's Award, I have the great privilege of sitting on the National Committee. So today I bring you greetings from the National Committee, and so that's from right across the UK. But in particular, I bring you greetings from the chairperson, Sir Martin Lewis, CBE. And for those of you who have a certain age, and I count myself in this, you will remember Sir Martin Lewis because he would have been in your living room many, many times because he is indeed a renowned newsreader, and he did feature on our TVs many, many times. And in actual fact, he went to school in Northern Ireland, so therefore he holds Northern Ireland actually very close to his heart. So he does send his personal congratulations to you today. But today is about volunteers. It's about the selfless dedication and the huge contribution that you, the volunteers, have made within the Fermanagh Talking Newspaper. And it's no accident that the logo that represents the Queen's Award for Voluntary Service is made up of groups of tiny people, and you can come and have a look at it later on and see just how the logo is made up. And really what it's saying is that when groups of people come together and make such a difference for people in their communities, and that is what we are celebrating and recognising today. When I read your nomination, I was really struck by the diversity of the people involved, but also the huge difference that you make to people's lives and their families as well. There's a ripple effect in terms of what you do, how it actually impacts on a range of people. And it also impacts on the volunteers as well in terms of the huge impact it has on their lives. We always say volunteering is good for your health, and I think when I read that nomination, I could see that it actually is good for the volunteers as well. So what I'm saying is, your contribution is truly exceptional. This award is made to exceptional groups of volunteers. So you need to be very proud today of what you have achieved. Lord Lieutenant, On behalf of the Queen's Award, I have pleasure in inviting you to come and address us today and to present the award. But before you do so, I'm going to ask Rosemary Wilkinson to read the citation. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. For the last 40 years, Fermanagh talking newspapers have brought the lifeline of local news to those with impaired vision in Fermanagh and South Tyrone. It cannot be imagined or understood by those of us with vision the effect of living without adequate reading sight, and the local newspapers are a lifeline. These are vital, especially when living alone, as a number of these people do. The 55 volunteers of ftna ensure that for the past 40 years, and for years to come, this small, disadvantaged group continue to receive the local news and information every week. The entire staff of ftna are volunteers, and their commitment is relentless in producing the USB on schedule every week of the year. There is no such service supplied by the state. Historically, we have 2 local newspapers, one from each side of the community. Impaired vision does not discriminate, and ftna passes on the news from both papers on one USB in a manner which makes it acceptable to everyone. The news covers a wide variety of topics, from national and local stories to births and deaths, and to the seemingly mundane but important matters such as bin collections with dates and variations. In essence, this service enables community and social inclusion, even for those who are more than often elderly and alone and with impaired vision. Rural isolation is one of today's major concerns throughout the world, and provision of care, which includes such services as this, is vital to our increasingly aging population. Democracy is there to protect minorities and those excluded from society for whatever reason, and those with impaired vision are all too often below the radar. ftna is recognised locally for its excellence of service provision by the NHS, care homes and local groups who help the aged. This may appear to be a simple service. It is not. ftna consists entirely of volunteers who cover essential tasks, which include readers, technicians, committees, administration, treasurer and collectors. The readers in particular have to read the full paper, paraphrase all the articles, and read them in an interesting and comprehensible manner. They are the local news readers, and it needs time, training and practice, which requires dedication to complete in the time frame required. We must realise too, that in general volunteers may be quite flexible with their time. However, this group has to meet a schedule 52 weeks of the year. I strongly recommend that this group of volunteers should be awarded a QAVS for 40 years of commitment to serving a small minority of society who, in the absence of any service, state or otherwise, rely on talking newspapers every week of their lives. The service enables them to feel included in society and not forgotten. It may be for the few, but it is a weekly lifeline for each of those individuals with impaired vision.
Good afternoon, everybody. I apologise about my voice. It sort of goes up and down because I had a silly thing wrong with my throat. So if you can't hear me, you better shout or scream or something, and I will try and speak louder. Aren't we lucky to be here today? And due to COVID at long last. But it is really, really important for all of us to congratulate all of you on achieving this award. And it's quite interesting because you're all volunteers, and you obviously do your thing, and you will be aware of other volunteers around the place. But in Northern Ireland, there are over 250,000 volunteers. And that shows what the volunteer base is, and it shows the enthusiasm for helping others. And volunteers are everything from out of our school football to Scouts to Juvenile Award, and of course, talking newspapers. Now, I first came across talking newspapers quite a number of years ago when I first went to the House of Lords, and I went on a visit down to Talking Newspapers headquarters. I don't know whether they're still there, but in Sussex.
It was in Peterborough the last time.
Peterborough.
I think they've moved.
Anyway.
They have moved, yes.
Yeah, and and that was why I became an admirer of them, because actually most people, I'm very sorry to say, don't know you exist. But that is the nature of volunteering. People do this volunteering and they don't shout about it, and they don't go screaming for medals or for whatever. They simply get on with the volunteering. And that is the very special thing about it, because government cannot, I'm not speaking for government, by the way, just in case you think I am, but government cannot and will not fund all the social things that need to go on, and they can't. But it takes a group of like-minded people to get together to do something about it. And you've already heard, and indeed you know, the full value of what you do. But I think it is amazing that if you are a single person living away out, and of course you can be a couple as well, but it's loneliness, isn't it? And it's not being attached to whatever else is going on. And I know that the Impartial and the Fermanagh Herald rarely get the weather right or anything else, but they do report on all the odd things that go on around the place. And I remember seeing in the Impartial, and then it would have been equally important, of 100 years ago or something, and the rent collector turned up at a house to get the rent, and the old lady inside picked up a fish and hit him over the face with it. but that's what keeps, not literally that in Fermanagh, but that's what keeps us going, and that's what keeps people going who are isolated, who may not be able to read very much, and may not even be able to hear all that much. And so it's really vitally important for all of them. But the volunteers and all of you, you put a lot of time into it, and we've already heard about the deadlines. And not many of the volunteering activities actually need deadlines. Some of them do, admittedly, but a lot of them, they can be done in their own time, and they can do. But you've got to get it out that week, and that takes quite a commitment. It also takes a commitment from your families, because when I did visit Talking Newspapers here, which was, I went to a couple of meetings and I went to the recording studios. Was anybody there at that time? It was a long time ago, and I didn't think you would. but it was in the evening. The meeting was anyway, and some of the other things were taking place during the day, and therefore you've got to leave home and go to meetings and go and do things. And as you leave home, you've got to shout back in, I'll be back for supper at 6 o'clock or whatever it is. And it doesn't always work out. Maybe in some cases the other half is delighted for you to be out for a while. But that happens with all of us, so that's nothing unusual. And so what you do is very much I don't mean it's a thankless staff, because a thankless job, because we are thanking you now, and we're recognizing it now. But there are so many people out there who don't know about it. And indeed, they are lucky enough to be like most of you and me. They don't actually need Talking Newspapers, so it goes unrecognized. But the work that you do is phenomenal, and for my education, I couldn't begin to praise the stories on the sport and the stories on what goes on. It would be a total shambles if I put it out. And I know that there are people doing the IT as well. Well, I had a row with my computer this morning, so I wouldn't have been much good at that. But it takes a group of people to get together, and it takes a tremendous commitment. And that is what this award is about. In Northern Ireland, we are, and there's always a dispute, something like 2.9% of the UK population. Varies between at least what people believe varies 2.9 to 3.1 or something. It's quite interesting that in Northern Ireland, which is so good at volunteering, so good at raising money for other causes, and we often hear it, that we get somewhere between 5 and 7% of the awards. And that is for one reason, and that is because we have such excellent volunteers who do a really brilliant job, and they rarely get told about it, but we do recognise it, and the groups of people who benefit from it are very, very grateful to you, but more than often they can't really come and say thank you. So in a way, this is Her Majesty the Queen. I'm not. This is Her Majesty the Queen saying a really big thank you to all of you, and for not just a job well done, but for tremendous commitment from you, your families, and what you do for the public around here. So I would just like to say many congratulations indeed, and to present you with the certificate first, or the... But thank you very much, and
Right. Next slide. Good, and one more. Thank you.
and you will notice that it is signed by Her Majesty too. She doesn't print these off in Newton Butler. just waiting for you to come and pick them up.
I do say it's a very proud moment, certainly for Manitoulin newspapers and for our volunteers, the supporters who are all dedicated. So, and thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having us. It's our privilege, not yours, it's our privilege to be here.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Just going to go to the other thing here.
Thank
That's good. Next slide. Thank you.
Say thank you, but it is our privilege to be here today, and I am very, very glad to have presented that. And I would like to thank Sandra Adair for coming down to be with us. And is it your first experience of ftna?
Certainly not.
You've been here 100 million times.
Certainly not.
But this is the first QAVS.
First QAVS award ceremony, yes.
Well, we hope we'll have you here many more times.
I'm sure we will.
And this group can tell everybody else their experiences one way or
That's
another.
the idea, yeah.
But thank you very much indeed.
It is such an honour to accept an award which recognises the contribution of volunteers to our community. The first recording of the Fermanagh Lakeland Echo was delivered to our listeners over 42 years ago in January 1979. And at the time the COVID-19 restrictions forced us to suspend our service in March 2020, we had recorded almost 2,000 editions. That is a tremendous achievement, made possible only by the dedication and service of volunteers. But what is it about the Manitoulin newspaper which has attracted such volunteer loyalty? I can only answer from my own personal experience. When I returned to work in Enniskillen Library in 1982, a colleague named Madeline Cunning, later Coyle, invited me to join the 5th week reading team. At that time, and until recently, we had 4 regular teams, one allocated to each Thursday of the month. Then the 5th team stepped in when there was a 5th Thursday in the month, and also provided backup for the other teams should one of their readers not be available to read. I accepted the invitation mainly because I'm one of those people who find it really hard to say no, and I couldn't think of a reason to say no anyway. So I accepted the invitation, and I discovered a world of community spirit, friendship and service. And eventually I graduated to be a permanent member of one of the regular teams. I remember the recording sessions in the Old Castle Barracks were very sociable. Founder members Arthur Mitchell and Eugene Kelly attended every week and provided tea and biscuits, in which Eugene's guide dog Headley was very interested. The recording technician, the unflappable and sardonic Clarence Phoenix, was so patient with mistakes of novice readers like me and ensured that good humour prevailed. I enjoyed the experience so much I even accepted Madeline's invitation to join the committee as secretary. After all, I had the time to offer, and a heart could be anyway. I was naive and had never been on any kind of committee before, so I didn't understand that the office of secretary is the one that people back off from at great speed. And this is why I have such respect and admiration for Philomena Mulligan, our current secretary, who has done much of the work in planning this event and is also, as you will hear, planning the resumption of our recording service. Over the years, many volunteers joined us, some for a short while, some for a very long time. Clarence, Madeline, Arthur and Eugene, along with many others, have passed away, but their contribution is not forgotten. For a number of years, external funding allowed us to recruit volunteer visitors and pay their travelling expenses. Many of them still volunteer with us as street collectors and would also volunteer if we were conducting a social evening at which their services were required. And actually, one of those volunteer visitors is Una Lunny, who is still volunteering with us. And Una has taken on the responsibility of coordinating the reading teams. And thanks to her, we are guaranteed that there will always be a technician and readers to do the weekly newspaper. I mean, that is some feat, and she's been doing it with grace for quite some time. It is my belief that volunteering with the Fermanagh Talking newspaper is attractive because the volunteers have something concrete to do. We're not just a talking shop. We produce an actual recording which is appreciated by our listeners, and you will hear Philomena talking about this at a later stage. And we play our part in ensuring that no member of our community is excluded from participation in local affairs through lack of information. Lack of access to information, I beg your pardon. All our volunteers, past and present, have made the service what it is and have enabled us to adapt to change over the years. The readers, the technicians, the reading team coordinator and the committee members. And let's not forget our partners who've gone above and beyond their normal duties to support us. The Health and Social Services team, the staff at Drumcoo, our auditors, McNeary and Rasdale, and until recently, the library service, which did our copying for us until circumstances dictated they had to withdraw the service. So, all in all, volunteering is a way of life for me and for many others. And I assure you, Lord Brooker, our efforts are appreciated because the people who receive our weekly talking newspaper cannot wait for it to return. And I will now hand over to Phil, who will outline our way forward.
Ladies and gentlemen, when the Fermanagh Talking newspaper knew COVID was serious and lockdown was coming, we notified listeners of a temporary cessation of the service via the last recording in early March 2020, assuring them we would get up and running again as soon as possible. Some months later, in September, we learned of a method to reconnect with our clients by way of a telephone service. Following a few meetings and with invaluable assistance from our technician Herbie Graham, we got the voice over internet protocol VoIP system up and running. Adhering to COVID restrictions, we set up a rota of 4 couples reading and recording in their own homes. And for their most valuable input, we are very grateful. We notified our clients by letter and local paper editorial that for the cost of a local call, they could hear the local weekly news. In February 2021, we undertook a survey to determine how many were listening to the news service. Sadly, one of the first things we learned was that 30 of our clients had passed away during the year March 20 to February 21. Many of those contacted were not listening to our current service due to not remembering to call, etc. But the one thing we did learn was that they all missed the service, wanted the service back in its original format, and were looking forward to its return. As many of our clients are based in residential and nursing homes in the county, we contacted the activity coordinator in these facilities to see if they would like to include the Fermanagh Talking newspaper as a group activity. They all expressed interest and affirmed they would be delighted to receive the service when we resume. We contacted 5 residential and nursing homes, and together with the 3 day centres already receiving the Talking newspaper, we are reaching a greater audience, which can only be a positive outcome. We currently have some 125 clients on our database and continue to get referrals from the sensory team based at Drumcoo. As part of this survey, we also contacted our volunteers to see if they wished to return to their normal duties pre-COVID. Again, they were agreeable, and for their service, past and future, we are very grateful. Things have changed for the Fermanagh Talking newspaper in that we no longer have the assistance of outside bodies and therefore have had to move production in-house. To that end, we have been reaching out for more volunteers to create a weekly rota, enabling us to copy and post to our clients. At this point, I would like to thank Howard Thornton for nominating the Fermanagh Talking newspaper for this award. The group want to thank all our volunteer readers, technicians, committee and collectors. And on this momentous occasion, we particularly remember one of our wonderful long-serving technicians, Pete Reeve, who recently passed away. Thank you.